is up, Only Playbook fans? We are back. I am Sweetcar. I've got Shishot alongside me. We are the Only Playbook. Hope you guys enjoyed our episode last week where we had a special interview with a Nepali descent football player, Sean Acharya. And keeping the trend going this week, guys, we have another former collegiate football player of Nepali descent. We are going to dive into his history, what got him into football, where he's at now, and again, how he did it, man. Just keep tallying the more Nepali players that play college football, and then maybe we can put them all together and get like
create a super team.
Create a super Nepali team, and we just like take them places and like, this is my squad. You want to play 11 on 11, and it's just all Nepalis. God, that would be so cool. Yeah. But we can keep dreaming. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great. Excited for this show. Excited to figure out, just round two of what was last week. What was last week? So excited to keep things going.
Yeah, man. There's not much time in my world, but I spent like a solid 5% of that time watching Anthony Richardson highlights. So I need to calm down.
Dude, he looks good, man. He looks good.
I'm getting Trey Lance vibes, though. I'm getting more Trey Lance vibes than I'm getting Lamar Jackson vibes, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's the scale, man. Is it going to end up one way or the other?
Dude, Michael Pittman came out and said he's like the 99, like the best person you'd want in Madden, right? 99 arm, 99 speed, 99, I think
power.
Power.
I was like arm and power is the same thing. What are you talking? But anyways,
his accuracy is probably like what, 50? It's probably really bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, he'll be exciting. Physical freak, the most physically gifted quarterback we've potentially ever seen. So it'll be interesting to see. But for the sake of this episode, let's bring on our guest so he doesn't have to wait any further. It is Riyadh Ananda. He is a former collegiate player from the University of Central Arkansas. I am going to bring him on now. Hey, Riyadh, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. How are you guys?
Doing fantastic, man. Yourself?
Hey, man.
I'm living the dream. Can't complain.
Glad to hear it. Thanks for joining us, bro. I really appreciate it. I'm Sweetcar.
Yes,
That's Shovit. I think you've had a conversation with him. That's Shishot. We like to call him Dr. Oja. He is officially a doctor. So really cool to have that on tap as well. But we are excited that you're here. So this is exciting for us. Obviously, the three of us are all Nepali. It's not every day we get to talk to somebody who's played college football who is of Nepali descent. If you got to listen to our episode last week, it was the first time we brought somebody on, Sean. So he kind of delved into it a little bit. But I want to give you the floor, Riyadh. Just give us like a 2-3 minute spiel into the history of your life, kind of, how you got started, where you're at now, and then we'll kind of plug in all the holes that we need to.
Sweet. So starting off as a kid, I had a split household. My mom is from Nepal originally. She came to the United States, had an opportunity to go to the University of Oklahoma as a college student. So that was in the early 90s, and that's when OU football was like
big time,
the dynasty, right? So like she kind of got a feel for football right away. My dad was born and raised in Arkansas, so being from the South, he kind of was big into Arkansas football. So it was kind of like a football household growing up. And I'm from Fort Smith, and it's really cool. So back home, there's the Battle of Rogers Avenue. So the two high schools are on the same like street. They're just on two different ends of the town. So it's only like a 4 or 5 minute drive, but it's like polar opposite schools. Like they both stand for like it's a super heated rivalry. So
nice.
Back in like the early 2000s, growing up, like the whole town shut down to go see that game.
Wow.
So I remember as a kid growing up going to those games, I was like, man, I want to play football. And back then, like Adrian Peterson was going crazy at Oklahoma. Darren McFadden was at Arkansas. So like I was like, man, I want to be a running back and this, that. So
hey, quick humble plug, but Adrian Peterson actually follows us on Instagram.
Hey.
Yeah, big time fan of Adrian Peterson. And we had interviewed a football player last year who had brought up a story about tackling Adrian Peterson, and AP responded to the tweet. He was like, yeah, I remember that. That was awesome. So he ended up following us, which is incredibly awesome. But continue.
That's crazy. But yeah, so I remember like, man, I want to be a running back. So I joined the Pee Wee football league, like the Boys Club League. They put me O-line, so I didn't really get to live those dreams right away. They let me run the ball once, which was fun. But outside of that, my running back dreams transformed into lineman dreams real quick. Kind of played off and on. I didn't really know if I wanted to kind of go like into what I was wanting to do. So ended up joining back my senior year of high school, and had the opportunity to walk on at the University of Central Arkansas as a tight end. And fast forward a couple years, they put me on scholarship, had a pretty good career there, and then recently came off 2 back-to-back season-ending injuries. So I was like, man, I think I'm just going to go ahead and hang them up and kind of get into my professional career. So kind of hung them up in March after a 5.5 year career, and about to graduate with my master's on Saturday, so it all kind of worked out for me.
Nice.
Man,
Dude, congrats. That's quite
Thank you.
the journey. I guess I wanna dive into the football aspect of it first, and we can
Right.
however we want to attack it. But like you mentioned, you came to a crossroads where injuries or maybe other things came into play, and you were like, is this what the future is for me, or when do I have to kind of look myself in the mirror and be like, here's the reality of it, and this is what I want to do. I guess how did you compartmentalize that? I'm sure that's a hard conversation to have with yourself and everybody else involved, to kind of have a reality check, but how did you do that? Were there family members, coaches, friends involved that kind of had the conversations with you? But how did you transition, which seems so seamlessly now, into your professional career and now graduating here in a couple of days?
Right. So I would say like I've had that kind of decision come up several times in kind of different forms. So I remember like being a junior in high school, wasn't on the football team or anything, and going to a game. I was like, hey, do I want to play football? Like just kind of having that conversations. Like, is that something I see myself doing? So that was kind of that first stage of that conversation. And then obviously like as a walk on, it comes up several times like, when's a scholarship coming? Like, do I kind of quit this and start working and kind of build up my resume in a professional setting? Or do I kind of grind it out and see how it kind of works from there? Obviously, I stuck it through. So, like, it's a conversation that I had kind of with myself many times. Obviously, like, as far as it comes to injuries and things of that nature, it's a different form, but it's something that I kind of was accustomed to in a way. So I would say like what made it easy for me was um as like getting my kind of way in wasn't super like roll the red carpet out, like everybody knows I'm there, like there's a big signing day feature of me. Like it was really I was really under the radar coming in, like nobody knew who I was. And I felt like I had kind of had a really good body of work and I was satisfied with kind of where I was. And I was just like, man, like I'm really happy with it how it is. And I remember the way I did it was like uh my coach had come up to me. It was like in the middle of spring ball, and he was like, "Hey, tell the guys that we have a meeting in 30 minutes." And I was like in the middle of the hallway. I was like, "Coach, I think I'm done." And like it was just on a whim, and I
Wow.
just felt like that was just like I didn't want to have a big announcement or anything. It's just kind of like it was just me and him, and it was just like kind of a private thing. And I kind of left the way I came in. Is where like I didn't have a walk on senior day or any. There wasn't really roses coming in, so there wasn't really roses coming out. So I was really satisfied, and just kind of how it all kind of I kind of left how I came, which is to me was kind of big to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of impressive that I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you said so you didn't play all of junior up till junior year, and then like senior year
Right.
playing, and then like it seems like everything just kind of happened fast, and then now you're playing college football. Like, what was that
Right.
all that like?
So I think any college football player would say they were a stud in like Pee Wee. So in Pee Wee, I was pretty like I was a bigger kid, so I was pretty advanced in like the Pee Wee leagues or whatever. Junior high, I kind of grew away from football, so I stopped playing all junior high. Sophomore year, I was on like the JV team, and I was really bad. Like it got to the point where I was the left tackle, and I was like the second string on the JV team. Our starter got like the flu or something. So before the game, the coaches walk up to me. It's like, anytime you think you're gonna lose a block, just scream out fire. And so I was super nervous, and like I remember going into like from snap 1 to snap 50, I yelled fire every time. And so the quarterback was a pocket passer, and he turned into a scrambler real quick. So that's when I knew like football wasn't for me. So I ended up kind of moving away from that after that season of sophomore year. Like I said, junior year, I was just going to the games, just kind of watching the student section. I was like, man, I think I can do this again. So uh, I think that was kind of like the biggest thing in my recruiting is I was just so like nobody knew who I was. So I had a really good senior year, but obviously I didn't go to the camps and like I didn't know like I was going to play football in college, so I didn't form those kind of connections in the recruiting world, things like that. So it was really just like all last second. I had a really good senior year, and actually the one of the guy who ended up recruiting me was a coach at one of the teams we played, and I had a really good game against them. So he was like, "Hey, like we're not going to offer you a scholarship, but based on your high school film or your that 1 year, you're a project for us, and we'd like to have you." So that's kind of whenever I took that opportunity and kind of ran with it.
Yeah,
That's nice.
I watched a lot of those high school highlights, man, and you are just straight steam rolling everybody in your way. And I'm like,
Right.
man, so talk to me about obviously senior year of high school. You got back into football. It looks like you played more on the offensive line. And then when you
Right.
got to Central Arkansas, was it because of your size that they felt like you were better suited as a tight end, or did you make the transition
Right.
yourself?
So it was a really good kind of like a perfect fit. So I did have a couple offers at the D2 level as an O lineman, but I knew I would be undersized because I'm like 6'3". In high school, I was probably 240, but a little more like chunkier kid, right? I didn't have like the muscle mass. Like I remember my senior year of high school, I bench pressed 185 once. So that's like no muscle mass, just kind of tubby. So I knew like if I was gonna play O line, I had to play like guard or center just with my height. But UCA, they have like a super kind of run heavy pro style offense. So like the tight ends are basically like an extended alignment. So I was like, that might be more my niche because they have like a fullback, H-back, tight end. Like you're just kind of like playing all three of those. So I was like, that's something I see myself playing. And it was just more so like, how do I kind of transition my body into fitting that role? So like I was kind of tubbier, like 240, 245 in high school. And I reported to UCA my first fall camp at like 210. So I was
Wow.
super undersized. So I got like kind of like skinnier. And then it ended up kind of conflicting as like I was just an oversized receiver trying to block, these Division 1 level D linemen, and it was not fun those first 2 years. So yeah.
Nice. Couple of questions, two in one. All of us growing up, we all have our favorite players and everything, and who you kind of want to model your game after, if there is a game. So who did you kind of look up to before you got selected to play? And did you have some of those qualities? Did you see yourself actually having some of those qualities? And is that why they picked you? Because people don't just take on walk-ons very easily unless they see something really special. So who did you kind of respect or look after, or model your game after? And why do you think the people that selected you?
Right. So I would say like as a kid, like I mentioned earlier, like all the superstars back then were my favorite players. The Reggie Bush, Jerry McFadden, Adrian Peterson, those guys, right? Whenever I realized, hey, like my future is in the trenches, I kind of had to shift kind of who my favorite players were. So I've always been like a football junkie and like the history of the game. So there's a guy that played for the Raiders in the 70s. His name is Gene Upshaw.
Wow.
Oh,
And he has like both arms, like forearms, like full sleeves, like pads everywhere. Like those old school Raiders, like none of them had teeth. They all had the crossbars. And if you go watch their highlights, they'd pull and just go blow people up. So I was like, that looks like fun. And that was like a guy that I really kind of tailored my O line play to. Because if you go watch like the O line stuff, there was no technique, it was just go hit people. And so that's kind of where I kind of got that kind of edge, and seeing them do it. That's kind of where I took inspiration from. And I would say from a tight end perspective, Delaney Walker. He had played for the Titans in the late 2010s.
Underrated.
So underrated.
He was like 6'2", 245, kind of like a bulkier guy, but short.
Yeah, he was tiny.
He was just really good in the run game as far as like blocking, and obviously like as a receiver, he wasn't necessarily like your vertical threat. He was just more kind of get in the hole, catch the ball, and get some yards.
Dude, I respect that answer more than anybody will ever expect that. Respect that answer, because my whole life, you always want to see like the special players that don't really belong there, but you're like, wow, you're like doing something with your undersizedness and whatnot. And I remember when Vernon Davis was taking over that job, and I'm like, wait a second, why are we rushing? Look at Delaney Walker just killing it out here.
Yeah.
So yeah, respect.
That's a great comparison, because Vernon Davis was this like athletic freak tight end who could run like a 4.3 first of his kind. And then you had Delaney, undersized, but just does all the dirty things, incredibly reliable hands. And then obviously he went on to Tennessee and had a really nice career for himself. So no, that's such a unique answer. Very, very respectable. I have one. So taking it back to the Nepali aspect of it, right? Your mom, Oklahoma. How does I'm comparing it to my mom. So, okay, sorry if somehow this comes off as ignorant, but like my mom and like getting into the sport of football would have never happened. Like, moving to Texas, it doesn't matter where it is. Right. So how did your mom not only like come about football, Oklahoma, big football stuff, right? But then not shy away from like the scariness of all the hitting and all this and all that. And it's different than soccer, right? Soccer in Nepal is like you're kicking the ball and you're not colliding heads and stuff. So for you to grow up in a football household, was it more so of your dad like pushing it on your mom? Was it coexisting? Or I guess from your mom's side, a Nepali woman coming here and getting into football, that's incredible to me. That's like something I would want my mom to do. So how did that happen?
And so I really think it's because, she came when she was like 18, 19 years old. So she was also young at the time. And like, I can only imagine having an opportunity to go to like one of those Oklahoma games back then. They were selling out the crowds, and like, that was like everything's shutting down to go watch OU football. So I'm sure like her getting that experience of seeing what football was. I mean, she didn't necessarily like push it on me in any way, but she was more so like open to it because maybe she had experienced it herself. And she'd also spent some time down in Texas and also in the late 90s, mid 90s, like the Cowboys were the thing back then too. So like she was kind of ingrained and like she understood how big and important football was in the South. And so I think like she was more open to it kind of earlier on. And then I don't think it's just more kind of like coexisting in that my parents didn't necessarily like limit it from me or necessarily like encourage it. They're like, hey, if that's something you want to do, just try your best at it and take it where it goes. So
during all the times that you mentioned you didn't play football, you had like gaps in your football playing career. What occupied your time? What were your hobbies, interests? Like what was keeping you away from football?
So growing up, I did kind of have like the kind of nerdy aspects as far as like I was big into music, so piano, I was in the band, things like that. So it's more like kind of on like the softer side of things as far as like I'd be in like robotics, quiz bowl, that type of thing. So I have like the dynamic of like the super like gritty football thing. But there's also that other kind of like I guess the typical Nepali side of like the more like laid back, kind of big brain stuff, you know, like stuff where it's more intellectual based. So it was really just kind of trying different things and finding what my niche was, and it ended up kind of being a combination of both.
Did you create the highlights that are on YouTube? Because I thought
those are all me because I was pumping it on everything just because I knew like I was super underground. I had no idea how recruitment worked, so I just made all my stuff and threw it out there. So
like
that was all me.
You pinpoint the camera to like not the camera but the circle on you know exactly where you were. I was like, this is some next level highlight. Like that, if we could incorporate that in our podcast, like that would be solid, you know what I'm saying? That was amazing.
You looking for a job that doesn't pay?
I'll do anything for the right dollar. So if there was a dollar behind it, I'd do it.
Nice.
Awesome. I had a question about Central Arkansas, and it's a D1 school. So I noticed that there are some players that have gone to the NFL from Central Arkansas. Two guys that stuck out to me is Tremont Smith and Rochelle. Did you have a chance to play with them?
So there's actually another one that was in Tremont. So Tremont graduated a year before I got there.
Okay.
There's also a guy that he's just re-signed with the 49ers, George Odom. He was also in Tremont's class. So we sent two guys to the NFL that year.
Wow.
And so right when I got there, they had left. So I was like, dang, I missed that. But I kind of got to see Robert Rochelle, who's with the Rams right now, him kind of develop. So whenever I got there, he was I think going into year 2 or year 3. So he was super young. And like I kind of saw that journey of him starting from like a younger guy with like super heavy expectations and then ultimately him going to the NFL. So I remember like everybody was kind of talking about him because he had a good like redshirt freshman year and they're like, okay, this is going to be the guy. And like if you look at him, he's probably like 6 foot, but he feels like 6'4" because his arms are so long and his like shoulders are broad. Like he just looks like an NFL guy. And I remember this is my freshman year, this like the off season. It's like 6 o'clock in the morning. And obviously in Arkansas, it's like 30 degrees out there. We're doing conditioning on the stripes. And so I remember we were doing relay, like it was team relays. And the finisher was like you pass the ball to like a med ball to a guy on the goal line. And he had to run 100 yards to the opposite and to finish the relay. And so his group is in last place. And like, no joke, the next closest team is probably on the 45, 50-yard line.
Wow.
And he gets the ball and hawks everybody down. I was like, what just happened? And that's when I was like, okay, this guy is different than everybody else. And then whenever like I kind of formed a relationship with him and that being on like scout team, he was obviously like the main corner. So there's times where like obviously you do have those kind of guys that are on scout team that quit throughout the year. So if a team didn't have a tight end, I'm going out there to play receiver at scout team. And so I remember lining up on it in front of him. I'm like nervous. I'm like, this is Robert Rochelle. Like I'm so just freshman. Like I have no idea what's going on. And like he was just kind of coaching me up and like I mean to be like, hey, like run your route this way. Like it was good coaching in the fact that he wasn't necessarily like above himself. Like he was really humble and was always helpful to the younger guys. And that's something that I really appreciated and kind of took with me later on in my career.
No, I think you hammered perfectly, because me and Shovit were talking about this. Like, when you find guys on your team in college that you're like, this guy could go pro, like, you have moments of like, whoa, this guy's different. And I think you just hit the nail on the head. That relay,
Right.
that moment, he takes that and he just jets by everybody who are like halfway ahead of him. Was that your moment that you're like, oh, this guy's different?
Yes, and there's another guy that is he went undrafted to the Rams this year, and he was a leading receiver in the ACC with Louisville. He had just transferred there. Tyler Hudson. He was he has all the receiving records at UCA. I remember his freshman year, so he was a year younger than me. We had like a motivational speaker come, and we're like, all the offenses in this meeting room, and the guy goes, so who in this room is going to take the next step and lead the uh, team in receiving yards? No one raises their hand. And some freshman in the back raises his hand. And nobody knows who this kid is. And we're like, what in the world is going on? And so like everybody's just kind of making fun of him in a way, like who does that,
Yeah.
you know? And then he shows up to the first fall camp practice with gold, like all gold accessories. Keep in mind, we're like a purple and gray school.
Oh
So he
God.
has gold cleats, gold gloves. We're like, okay, this is every kind of corny kid ever.
Yeah.
Like this kid is like what? And he doesn't kind of like, I mean, he's like 6'1", 6'2", but not like buff or anything. Like, so he just kind of looks like a regular kid. And at the time, we had like an all-American corner from like the EMCC, which was like in Last Chance U, like
Ah.
a stud at cornerback. First play of one-on-ones, they throw it up, one-hand moss, and we're like, okay, what's going on? We go
Wow.
play at Western Kentucky FBS team that first week. He runs like a bang post, slips behind the backers. Quarterback overthrows him. He goes one hand, snags it, and we're like, okay, this kid is like has like 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns this year. Ended up leading the team in receiving yards for the next 3 years.
Let's
Wow.
go.
But it was just like
Let's
that is just
go.
insane. And he obviously hit the transfer portal this past year with Louisville, and then they weren't really giving the ball. And I just knew, like, I just kind of knew what he was about. And I was like, Clemson, that game, that's the biggest moment. He's going to take advantage of it. Have like 12 receptions, 150 yards,
Wow.
a touchdown. And I was like, and unfortunate that no team kind of drafted him, but I really think he's going to be one of those undrafted guys that ends up making it down the line. So
I mean, that's just a testament to the skill gap and how many players are in the world of football and how many actually make it, right? I mean,
right,
you saw that guy
right,
and he was better than everybody else on that football field.
right.
And for that guy to go undrafted, I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah, right.
That's
So
insanity. What else you guys got? I want to run into these rapid fires, which are gonna be a lot of fun, but I don't
Yeah,
want to keep
yeah. Yeah, I got some. I mean, obviously, we're all brown, right? Football is not in our
right.
in 75% of our DNA.
Yeah.
How do you overcome these hurdles? What type of hurdles did you overcome as a young brown person? I'm sure, you know, in the South, people are probably not looking at other brown people to be joining football teams. I know you're half, but tell me some of these.
Right.
Tell me some of these hurdles that you've noticed. That if you have some words of wisdom for people trying to be in your shoes, what are some of those things? If you can share something from like you know, from like your background perspective on and how to attack a team.
Right. So I would like, especially like, I guess with our kind of genetics, we don't necessarily always look the part, right? So even me, like this past season, I got up to like 6'2.5", 6'3", like 250, but I was like, I mean, I was like buffer, but not, like ripped up by any means. So I kind of like didn't necessarily look like a starting tight end at the Division 1 level, but it was more so like, um, I mean, I knew I had kind of put the work in, and like my weight room numbers spoke for themselves. So it was never like an appearance thing for me. And also like it's just I know teammates were like they'd always ask like what race are you? Like they were just so like unfamiliar with seeing somebody that kind of like I guess looked like me in a way, like
Mhm.
so it's just more so being patient, being open-minded, and obviously there's gonna be times where like people say some weird things, you just kind of gotta let it go in one ear out the other, and don't necessarily like limit your own potential based on kind of like the frameworks that other people are gonna place on you. So
How much of the Nepali side of the culture has your mom kind of instilled upon you?
So it was more so like growing up, like her parents were in the household too. So it was really like I wouldn't say it was super traditional, but like those core values were still there. So like I kind of took up some of the ways of like not eating beef or pork or anything like that. So like there's things like that. And obviously like every summer growing up, I would go back to Nepal and spend like the summer there.
Nice.
So I kind of got to experience the culture, like firsthand and
Yeah.
things like that. So I would say that was really eye-opening for me early, as I had a bigger perspective on the world. Even though, like, yes, I was born here and like I'm half, like I spent a good portion of my childhood kind of spending summers over there and growing up over there. So it really kind of opened my eyes to the world as a whole. That really kind of helped me, I guess, mature and see things differently early on.
That's fantastic. Do you speak Nepali?
So while I was younger, I spoke it fluently. Now I would say like I understand everything pretty much fluently, but I'm best with my mom's version of Nepali, which is kind of broken now since she's been here. I mean, she's still really good at it, but it's like kind of turned into a half English, half Nepali thing. So I'm just like,
Alikati matram छ, alikati matram छ.
yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little, just enough to be dangerous. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
No, that's really, really cool, man. Again, it's just incredible because we talked to Sean last week, and Sean was a family friend of mine. So, he's younger. I grew up with him. And to see him kind of come onto the scene, it started to, get our mind kind of going down that train of thought where it's like, are there any other, people of Nepali descent that have, broke onto the scene in college football and obviously maybe other sports and beyond? Because, as a football podcast, it's amazing to see this, right? I mean, again, I think it gets me giddier to talk to you, to hear about your perspective than potentially if we were to get an NFL player, that just was going to tell us their story about being in the NFL, because this just means more in a different assets or different facets. So I think it's amazing. Do you guys have anything? I really want to jump into the rapid fire.
Yeah, sure. Last thing, it's important. You don't get to meet, players that are from a Nepali descent that are this big. First of all, like you're ginormous, right? And yes. I'm in the medical field, and I really want to know. I'm also going to be in sports medicine. So number one, your injuries. You mentioned those earlier. I'm still hung up on that. I need to know what injuries and how did you overcome from them, and did they derail you in any way? Are you still struggling from some of those injuries?
Right. So both of them were super complicated. Like they weren't like, I kind of wish I'd gone back and just tore an ACL twice, because that's pretty simple. So the first one was a horseshoe tear, and it ended up on the meniscus.
Yeah.
And it ended up tearing like completely through. So like straight across, and obviously like with the meniscus, some of it is non-vascular. So you don't really know if it's going to grow back or anything like that. So that happened like the week of our first game, and I ended up playing 4 weeks on that. So it ended up being like a disaster. Like I had stripped out most of the cartilage in my knee and things like that. So they ended up doing a full repair, and I think the time frame for my normal meniscus repair is like 3 months to return to play. I ended up being like 6.5, 7, just because it was just more like a patience thing, because the way it like torn all the way through, like you just had to make sure it all heals back together and things like that. And the second one was a distal fib. So basically like breaking the fib, and then everything that kind of holds it together gets stretched out, and it basically separates everything in your leg. And tore up a bunch of stuff in my delts, like lower deltoid ligaments. So it was pretty bad.
So I've had the same 2 injuries. I've also had a torn meniscus, lateral meniscus, but I didn't get it surgically repaired. I got it removed. I got a piece of it removed. So it's better. You did the right thing. And then I also broke my distal fibula. Basketball injuries, it's like, you can't avoid it.
Right. And I would say, as far as just like physical challenges, so I was always kind of undersized, but like uber athletic. So like I didn't necessarily have like the sturdiness or like the girth to like move guys, but I always had the explosiveness, right? But I would say kind of whenever I got injured, I was obviously, like on crutches and things like that. So I wasn't moving around as much, kind of shedding weight. So I really just got in the gym and just hit upper body, upper body. So I turned into, almost like shifted from like this, like a sports car into like a tank, where I was like, maybe I kind of lost a step, but I got like bulked up, and that ended up kind of helping me later in my career. And that I was able to really play like inline, tight end, and move guys, just because I was more bulkier than I was whenever I was kind of like a sports car, fast, twitchy, that type deal. So
cool.
Yeah. No, that's good. Should we jump into rapid fire? Shova, you got anything? Sorry, I'm just so amped up about rapid fire. All right, Riyadh, rapid fire. Here we go. Favorite Nepali food?
Oh, just simple dal bhat.
Dude, easy. 2 for 2.
Let's go. Love to hear that. Do you have any pregame rituals or any superstitions?
So they always change year to year.
Okay.
This year, my home games, I would make my own egg fried rice. It had to be measured out perfectly. 2 cups, uncooked, and then 2 whole eggs. Scrambled it up, good to go. And as far as like music, this year the theme was just chill.
Okay.
So like I'm listening to like 90s, like MC Hammer, Too Legit to Quit, like it was super like Zen based, and not like years prior. I was super like Chief Keef, like
Yeah.
Aggressive.
This past year is super like Zen, be at peace, and I ended up pretty much being my best whenever I was just kind of calm and collected. So
Yeah. I mean, I had this on here, but I think you answered it. Your top 3 songs on your pregame hype list.
so yeah, it always changes. So I'd say like early on in my career, the Kanye West, Drake, like the super, like let's get going.
You kind of look like a mix between Drake and Kanye West.
I get that. My mom calls me Kanye all the time. But yeah, this past year it was like Michael Jackson,
Nice.
MC Hammer, like that kind of 90s, 80s, just kind of like pop stuff, just Zen type stuff,
Nice.
Most memorable play on the football field.
3rd and 2, it's at home. We're playing Eastern Kentucky. I'm some walk on. They throw me the game winning pass. It's underthrown. I catch it with my left hand, and that's what got me on scholarship.
Let's go. Where's the highlight reel of that? I need to see that.
So yeah, I'll send it to you guys after this, but there's kind of a story behind it. So this is whenever I was so this is going into year 3. I was on special teams, so we're like 8, 9 games I've played for free. Like this is unheard of for like a guy to be playing without a scholarship.
Yeah.
Like I was just out there like just trying to prove myself and playing. And I was like 6th or 7th in the tight end room. All the guys ahead of me got hurt. So I ended up like starting this game. And like this is my first game and I had no idea what's going on, but I'm doing pretty good. And then our starting quarterback had got hurt the week before that. So we have a backup quarterback who's from like the same part of Arkansas. And like he had kind of known me from like high school and things like that. So this was like 3rd and 2. We were up by like a possession, or like I think we were up like 4 or 5 points. So basically, if we turn the ball over, they can get it and score. So we call it the timeout. The quarterback walks in the huddle, and he's kind of one of those gunslinger guys. Like he's not going to make the right read; he's just going to throw it up. And I remember we get to the huddle. And he's like, the coach goes, "What do you want to run?" And then he goes, "We're throwing it to Rio." And the coach basically looks at him and goes, basically like, "Who?" And so we basically call this like play. Like we're in basically goal line personnel. So it looks like we're about to run this for 2 yards and call it a day. We call it play action pop pass, rolling left, so it's away from him.
Wow.
He throws it behind me. It's like on the ground, and I'm right-handed, so left hand's like, oh gosh, like, and I see the ball. I'm like, oh, he just threw me a duck, and this is bad. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna stick my hand out, and we're gonna see what happens. I catch it, first down, we win the game, and I remember being in the locker room, and everybody's like, you just earned your spot, and that was awesome.
I got goosebumps just hearing that story. I got goosebumps just hearing that story. That's incredible. God, what a feeling.
Oh, yeah.
Can't imagine. Okay. Flip side of the coin. Most forgettable or embarrassing play on the football field.
Oh. Let's go first drive at Ole Miss this year. It was like downpour raining, and like this is gonna sound weird, but the most impressive thing at Ole Miss was the grass. Like every blade was cut perfectly. It was insane. Natural grass. And it just starts monsooning before their first drive, dry. So they had perfect conditions. We go out there, keep in mind, like they're going to smoke us by 40 anyways. Yeah. Downpour rain. And it's just a slip and slide. Like, this is the biggest game of my career. Like, I'm living my childhood dreams. Like, I'm on the field. I'm looking down. The Ole Miss logos at my feet. I'm looking up. All the Ole Miss guys are there. And, like, that first drive, I'm slip and slide. Like, I can't get my balance. I'm like, this is so bad. But after, like, that ended up being my best game. But that first drive was just terrible. Like, I could not get my footing. I was slipping around, falling. I was like, oh, this is so bad.
No, I can't imagine. I can't imagine being conflicted, living your dream, childhood dream, and then you're like, okay, God, really? Like you're gonna put this in like the worst situation possible with all this rain.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Guilty pleasure movie.
Oh, movie.
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Okay, so I would say I've watched Oppenheimer 3 times since its release.
What?
Wow.
You have to be the only one.
So like, yeah, I spent like $30 on this movie. But let's see. General guilty pleasure movie. Yeah, I can't really think of one off the top of my head. Anything, I guess, like we'll go like Captain Marvel. That's like
okay. Are you a Marvel fan?
I was.
Yeah.
Now they kind of fell off.
Yeah. That's fair.
Back like the whole like Avengers, all that I was big on. But yeah, Brie Larson and Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel, I was big into that.
Okay.
Well, you got to tell us your favorite Marvel superhero now.
Oh, Tony Stark Iron Man.
Let's go. Let's go.
He's 3 for 3 on Shishot's list right now.
Dude, let me just live your life. How about you live my life and I live your life?
Let's go for it. We'll swap.
I think you already hit on this, but if you had to pick one, your football idol, who would it be?
Probably Delaney Walker. That's just like it was just nice knowing that somebody undersized and not, Kyle Pitts who's 6'6", 6'7", 4.3 speed. Somebody who's like a normal human could excel at the position at the highest level. So
no, that's a good one. I think anybody maybe outside of Delaney Walker's family and you were the only people that would probably give Delaney Walker as the answer there, which is just amazing for us. Shobit, you have that last question in red. I'll let you ask it.
Yeah. So your football celebration, what would be your go-to celebration, or what was your celebration whenever you scored that touchdown?
So it's more so like I had no sort of rhythm or bag. Like my celebration was just not going to work. So I just talked. I was one of those kids who had they'd hand me the scouting report. I'm writing people's girlfriends' names down, aunts, uncles, moms, dads, dogs' names.
No.
I'm talking the most trash.
Dude.
And so I was too busy jabbing at them verbally to really do any sort of dance or anything. I was not me. I'm not going to be fluid enough, too gritty. But I'll let them know that I scored. So.
Dude, that's a Michael Jordan level shit where you're just creating narratives about these people's families just to piss you off so you can play harder.
Right, and it kind of catches them off guard. They're like, "What?" It's like, "Yes."
Dude, that's amazing. That's incredible that it gets to that level in college football. But no, that's awesome. That is the end of rapid fire. Do you guys have anything else for Riyadh before we send him on his way?
Yeah. Do you have a PlayStation and do you play Madden?
Xbox, and I don't think I've ever lost a game in 4 or 5 years. I'm just
wow. This just took a big turn here. Riyadh, let me just tell you something. Yeah, no, Shisho, you tell him.
Yeah, just to kind of update you on our side of things. I know we're interviewing you, but back in our day, me and Sweetkar, we lived together most of our childhood, and in 2006, with Donovan McNabb on the cover. Or Madden 06, it was 2005. We were number 1 in the country in Madden with a record of 726 and 20 something.
Xbox Live on the original Xbox.
I think if we get on the 360, you guys might have me beat. But anything newer, I'm running goal line power to you guys with the game.
Damn, this is some freaking Eagles Jalen Hurts shit. You're just running quarterback sneaks from first down all the way to fourth down.
It's not too much cheese. I'm not gonna RPO cheese you, but I'll sit there and goal line and run play action and just make you frustrated.
I think you already gave us a great idea for one of our next podcast episodes. We need to have you and Shisho play each other in Madden because I think that would be an incredible sight to see.
Let's go for it.
Incredible.
Let's go for it. And then basic ground rule stuff. Who's your favorite NFL team right now, and who are you drafting number 1 overall in fantasy if you have the first overall pick?
So favorite NFL team,
Cowboys?
diehard Cowboys.
Yeah,
fan.
I see it in the back.
So
I had to stop myself from throwing up, but you're good.
And then first pick in fantasy, probably Justin Jefferson. He's probably your safest bet.
Give us your best gritty.
There's no shot. I might share the other meniscus trial. It's not gonna work.
Dude, it has been an absolute treat. Riyadh, thank you so much for your time, man, sharing your story. Hopefully we can get you back on. Do you have any final words for us on the Only Playbook?
Man, I love what you guys do. Keep it up. I've tuned into some episodes just kind of on my own study. So you guys have a really cool thing going, and just keep it up, man.
Really, really appreciate that, man. Riyadh, say your last name for me so I don't butcher it.
Ananda. So it's like Amanda with an A.
Riyadh Ananda. This is Riyadh Ananda tuning in on the Only Playbook. Thank you so much for your time, man. Hopefully we can get you back on sometime.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys for having me.
Hey, take care, man.
Later, bro.
Beautiful. That was Riyadh Ananda, like Amanda, but with an N. God, it's like Sweetkar without the T. We all have that phonetic way to just tell people how to say our names, huh?
I wish, yeah.
You got nothing. It's been 33 years. Nothing's come up. God damn.
No, dude. Some of the doctors I work with, they're actually like, all right, no nickname guy. All right, that's fine.
Wow. That is, yeah. For somebody with such a unique nickname to not have a nickname, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, we'll tell them the actual way you say it, and then give them this way, and they're like, okay, we get it.
And then give them the Nebraska eighth grade Sassoth version of how they used to say it, and there's,
what are you gonna do?
But that was our interview with former Central Arkansas tight end Riyadh Ananda of Nepali descent. So what did you guys think? I thought that was amazing, really well spoken. Awesome to hear his journey. Really cool dude. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, man. Really cool stories that he shared with us. That touchdown, man, I can only imagine what that felt like. Scoring touchdown, 3rd and 2, one left-handed when you're right-handed.
Dude, I keep remembering, like, when like somebody tells you their like best story, like, and especially football related, then you want to think about like, what are my good stories? I mean, Sweetcar at least played padded football. Yeah. I played flag football, and I keep going through this one play. I don't remember very much because I had a concussion on the field at one time, but I do remember this one play. It was to end the game, and the other team had the ball. We were up by 2. The other team had their last drive, right? And this guy did a toss to his running back, but the running back was set out wide. Like, it was one of those like motion plays. And I saw that coming, and I picked off the toss and I took it back for a touchdown.
God, what a
give me that.
Yeah, that's my highlight. I mean, anytime somebody talks about their story, I just live in my glory days of that one play.
That's incredible. I'm sure I've shown you guys like my 2 football highlights from 8th grade, right? There's 2 videos that I've ever, and if this is mine, right? So if we're like, hey, Sweetcar, what are your biggest football highlights? Well, 8th grade football, padded football, you can see me in the jersey and the helmet. It's like bigger than my entire body, right? So I look like I don't belong. But I wore number 84, obviously Randy Moss. And so there was one game. So it was 8th grade football. You know how many games you played in the season? 4. You played 4 games in the season. The 3rd game of the season, our starting quarterback got hurt. So our backup quarterback was starting, right? The 3rd game of the season was finally the game where in practice, the coaches were able to see that I actually knew how to catch the football. And surprisingly in 8th grade, my hands, like when I would measure them against other people, they were bigger. They never grew after that. So it's the same size. But in 8th grade, my hands were surprisingly bigger. Like I even measured it with the head coach and they were like, whoa, your hands are big. And so 3rd game of the season, right? I got to play receiver and I also got to play cornerback. As a receiver, we never throw the football. It's like all running offense all the time, right? You like never throw. You throw maybe 2 times the whole game. Well, this game, one of the 2 times we threw the football, it went to me and it was like an 8-yard hook route. So I was just running forward, hooking back and caught a pass. And then that same game, bro, in the 4th quarter, they had me play cornerback in the red zone on like the 1-yard line, covering this, the receiver one-on-one. It's all in video. I'll show you guys. And he runs like but it's like a fade. It's like a hike and you throw it to the quarterback. It's like what Russell Wilson and the Seahawks ran, right? I was Malcolm Butler. Like I straight up picked it off. Some guy comes and like decks me and tackles me and I fall on the ground, but I cut the pass off and I pick it off in the end zone. So those 2 videos, my best football days, and they're both on video on my laptop. So if anybody ever wants to see that, I have the highlights for it.
Dude, you were Malcolm Butlering this whole time and didn't even like tell us?
No, I will. I'm going to send you guys the 2 videos after this so you guys can look at it. It's the funniest shit ever because I don't look like the pads and everything look bigger than me. You can barely see my face, but yeah, that was the interview. Shove it. You got any football stories that you've been holding out on us? C-team center or something like that? You were center?
No football stories, just basketball. I just remember making a 2-point shot when everyone was like, pass me the ball. And I was like, no, I'm going to shoot this shot.
Yes.
The left side where the free throw is, but like a little bit to the left of that.
Elbow.
And it went in. The elbow, yes. And it went in. And that was the highlight of my basketball C-team career in 7th grade.
It's just great, man. Like just relive those glory days in your brain, man. Hitting that mid-range jumper off the elbow with all those people that didn't think you knew how to dribble a basketball. Okay, that's it. That's the episode. We could talk about this all day. I am Sweetcar. That's the show. That's show of it. Thank you so much for Riyadh for joining us on this episode. We will be back next week. Football starts. It's already started, but first full weekend of preseason games are going to be on tap, I think, starting tomorrow. So much more football content to talk about. We will be back next week. Again, Sweetcar show of it. We're the only playbook. Thank you guys. See you guys next week.